Well, ladies and gents, we are live this evening on the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. The Big D ready to talk all things Chiefs Ravens AFC Championship. Before I toss into my guests, please subscribe, like, and share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page. See all my content. It's championship weekend, so it's going to be extra special. Also, check out the Big D podcast for all the audio listeners, Spotify and Apple. So, joining us, not one but two guests, Kansas City Chief fan Dennis and Baltimore Raven fan Matt Trigger. So, gentlemen, welcome and congrats for your teams making championship Sunday.
Oh, it's getting nice to be spoiled like this, 6 straight for a Chiefs fan. We're living large, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a big game, Dennis and Dylan. I know you guys have been hearing about it the last couple of days, but here in Baltimore, the Ravens have not hosted, or a football team in Baltimore has not hosted a AFC Championship game in 53 years. It was the 1970-71 season when the Colts were still a part of Baltimore, and it's really electric right now because for the first time in a long time, we have an AFC Championship game at home. Both of our previous Super Bowl victories, we had to go on the road the entire time, and it's nice not having to go on the road to get to the Super Bowl. So we had a fantastic turnout last weekend, 72,000 screaming Raven fans, hoping for a likewise turnout this weekend.
Yeah, and Matt, I was out in Baltimore the year that Irsay moved the Colts. I was living out in the Baltimore area, and boy, oh boy, Baltimore football fans, they are just some of the best in the world. I'm telling you, I got hooked on the Baltimore scene for football, and then the Colts left town. I'm like, what do I do now? But you guys have a great fan base out there. It's well deserved to see the Ravens in the championship game.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and full transparency. I wasn't alive when the Colts left. That was about 5 years before I was born. So I know a lot of Ravens fans that decided to just wait Baltimore football fans that waited for another team. That's a sore subject with a lot of family, a lot of people I know, and it's it's nice to see that the championship game's back here. We have a great atmosphere, a great city for football. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually happy that we get a chance to see you guys again. And I know that's, I'm not being facetious because we're on the show together by any means, but I truly believe that Lamar needs this type of game to cement whatever legacy he wants to build. Going through the best quarterbacks that you possibly can to get there. And I believe that Mahomes is better than Josh Allen. I actually believe a lot of people are better than Josh Allen, but I'm not going to, that's a whole different conversation. Lamar and Patrick Mahomes, they're two of the premier guys in the league. And when you want, they're going to be the face of the league for the next 10 years. So this might be a recurring theme where we're trading, home field games for the AFC Championship, and I'm looking forward to a good football game this weekend.
Well, I mean, if you want drama, this game will provide plenty of drama. I mean, Kansas City's playing a 6th straight AFC Championship game, sort of catching what New England did in the 2000s, where the Pats made 8 straight, and then Baltimore, first AFC Championship game in 11 years. The Ravens haven't hosted an AFC Championship game. Went on the road to New England twice, and then faced the Oakland Raiders, where Shannon Sharpe is still running by the Raider defense in 2000.
Yes, that was the more memorable AFC Championship game that I was only in middle school when I watched that, but that 2000 team was just a different breed, and It's crazy because when you look at the rules of the game today, Dennis, and Dylan, you guys, we all know that it's more geared towards the offense, and scoring is sexy, and defense is put on the back burner. A lot of the rules have been catering to wide receivers and quarterbacks for about a decade now. But for the Baltimore Ravens defense this year to give up 17 points a game in today's game, that's something. I believe that it's it's impeccable that they managed to not give up a single touchdown in a playoff game last week. It's like shades of the 2000 team. So I'm kind of happy being a Baltimore Ravens fan right now.
Both of these defenses are built for speed. That's the way to build a defense in this era. You've got to be fast. You cannot give quarterbacks any time to sit and pick you apart because you can't touch the guys.
You're right.
So both teams are built identically on speed. They're two of the fastest defenses you got, and they are the two best defenses left in the playoffs right now, both coming out of the AFC. And I'll say both of the quarterbacks are the best two quarterbacks left in the playoffs as well. AFC has got the strength, and I really think the winner of this game is going to go on to win the Super Bowl.
I believe that too. And I don't know if you guys played both San Francisco or Detroit this year, but we manhandled both of those teams in a matter of a month. We punched Detroit in the mouth. They came to Baltimore, and we put up almost 40 on them. And then we dismantled San Francisco on Monday Night Football on Christmas night. So it's not really arrogance as much as I'm thinking to myself, we know who both of these teams are. They're playing good football. They're obviously playing good enough football to be, at this point in the season, still alive. But my confidence level is pretty high if we have to play either one of those teams, because they are high-powered offenses, but they got punched in the mouth by a physical defense. And Purdy still hasn't really recovered since that 4 interception game where we tore him apart.
I can attest, Matt, because my Jags played San Francisco week 10, punched us in the mouth, and then in week 15 where Lamar's still giving me nightmares with that one play where he avoided the sack of Robinson Harris and then threw a bomb in the end zone. Then he threw a bomb.
So what do you do at that point? The dude makes those kind of plays on a regular basis. No matter how much speed you have, like Dennis alluded to a couple minutes ago, you got to build your defense with speed, but you still got to be able to tackle.
Oh,
and
yeah.
If you got guys that can run with Lamar, but they can't tackle Lamar, I mean, it's like trying to catch a snake, and we're used to that here in Baltimore. That's what we're used to. That's what we like to do, is watch Lamar make fantastic plays, and I'm not even surprised by it anymore. The guy makes people miss. He can avoid a sack. You think you got him, and then all of a sudden he's rolling out of the pocket and, pointing at receivers to start blocking, and there's a 15, 20, 30-yard run.
He's so strong and he's so quick. And that's the thing. If Kansas City did not do a good job of keeping Josh Allen in the pocket in the first half, they got better as the game wore on. But their edge rushers cannot let Lamar get away. And Bolton and Gay need to lock down the middle against him when he tries to run. What Kansas City did in the second half against Allen, we're going to see more of this week. They just had a spy just dedicated to him. And I think with the lack, outside of Flowers, there's nobody on the wide receiver side that scares me with Baltimore. That's the weakness. And because, who's going to get deep on you, for the Chiefs against that Chiefs defense, because they've got good cornerbacks that can man up against anybody. So I think the Chiefs can kind of cheat a little bit and kind of stuff that middle of the field, maybe with a second spy, maybe that one of the safeties is keep an eye on Lamar as well, because those are the big plays that are going to kill him. And the only place I look at weaknesses for the Ravens ain't on the defense. I'll tell you that. It is the lack of a second wide receiver to go with Flowers, and Flowers is fabulous, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
Flowers and Rice have been two of the more dynamic rookie wide receivers this year. They didn't start off as fast as some of the other guys that were trying to make headlines, but boy, down the stretch, the second half of the season, both Rice and Flowers have been they've been killers, man. But I think the key for the Chiefs is there's nobody really in that running back core for Baltimore that scares me. So if we can contain Lamar, we got a shot. I really think Buffalo had better runners that were going up against us, and we were able to shut them down in the second half as well.
That's fair in your assessment. Odell has had an up and down year in terms of injury, but he's been vital to moving the chains and getting first downs for us. Same with Nelson Aguilar and Rashad Bateman. We have a pretty good group of wide receivers. Nobody that's going to jump off the screen at you other than Zay at this point. The wild card for us really is whether or not Mark Andrews plays. And
I'm glad you mentioned Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews, even if he's out there, he's got to be respected. So whether or not he's going to be an impact player remains to be seen. But if he's out there, Isaiah likely came on. He has 6 touchdowns in his last 7 games. He's become a number 1 target for Lamar. Lamar leans heavily on his tight ends. He's been doing that since he got in the league. And if Andrews is back, it's a different ballgame, because now are you going to put a second spot on Lamar, or are you going to cover the tight end with somebody that's capable? Because I know Bolton can cover tight ends. I've watched enough of your games to know he's good at it. But now you got to choose between you're going to cover Likely or you're going to cover Andrews. And last week we ran for, I believe we ran for just over 220 yards on the ground.
100 of that was Lamar, though.
100 was Lamar. But it looks deceiving on paper, because out of all those runs that he had, 3 were designed. So 8 of his 11 rushes were the pocket breaking down or him having to extend the play, and then he just chose to pick up the yardage with his legs. Dalvin Cook came in, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, Dalvin Cook, wheels fell off." His first run from scrimmage was 23 yards, and he ended the game, I think, with just shy of 40 yards for the contest. And Justice Hill's running hard. Gus is running hard. Gus Edwards was a touchdown machine this year. He had 13 touchdowns on the ground. I think we're the most balanced offense in the entire league, and I'm not trying to be biased, but top to bottom, if you want to stop the run, Lamar has the ability now to throw, like make every throw confidently. And if you want to shut down Lamar's air game and you want to shut down the middle of the field, we have enough capability at the running back position to combat that. So that's what happened in tennis with the Texans this past weekend. They really focused on shutting down Lamar, and the first half they were getting after him. They were making him uncomfortable. And then after the second half started, they deviated. They started a lot of quick pop passes, a lot of leaning heavily on the run game. So that's where we exploded.
Yeah, the Texans defense just wore down. You guys wore them out. The reason that OBJ and Bateman don't scare me is because we've got the physical corners that they can't match. Now, Zay Flowers, they'll put him in motion. They'll get him open. And Likely and Andrews, if he plays and if he's healthy, those are the X factors in this game, along with Lamar. Those guys scare me, because the Chiefs have been getting torched by lesser tight ends. So that's the place that we're a little bit weak. But that's because we choose to take the other team's wide receivers and best wide receiver out of the game. That's the game plan for the Chiefs. We're going to take your best wide receiver, try to take him out of the game by being physical. The problem with Flowers is he's just so doggone quick, and they will put him in motion, and that's the X factor that will get him some opportunities. Not worried about Bateman and OBJ. I was worried about OBJ about 8 years ago. Uh,
Fair.
no, and it's because he cannot get off the line of scrimmage against a physical cornerback anymore. He just can't. And that's the old age kicking in. Hey, I'm an old guy. I know about old age. But Likely and Andrews are the two X factors there that the Chiefs got beat. I was glad to see Knox go out of that game. Then they only had to worry about Kincaid, and Kincaid was beating them pretty big. But it's Lamar's a different type of runner than Josh Allen too. Josh Allen's just a tank.
He is. That's the point.
He's fast, but he's a tank. He's going in one direction. Lamar
He's Tebow.
Lamar just he's a running back in quarterback clothing, man. The guy's like he's got the moves of Barry Sanders at a bigger size, and then he's got an arm that can chew you apart if you're not not careful as well. He's got a cannon of an arm. I've watched this kid ever since he was coming up through Louisville. Man, he has always gotten dogged for not being a great quarterback. The people that don't think he can throw, they don't know ball.
Well, that's true. And then a lot of people, they saw what the Ravens did for him when he came in the NFL. They completely changed the offense when Flacco got hurt mid-year in 2018. And then they brought in Greg Roman, and they pretty much ran a college-style RPO system. People forget he won the Heisman as a 17-year-old running a West Coast offense for Bobby Petrino. So I've always been of the mindset, like, okay, he might not be able to make all the reads yet, but a lot of his problems can be fixed through years of experience and coaching. It wasn't like he had anything that was horribly wrong with him to where he was deemed like a forever project, or he wasn't going to be what he is. But you are right about Allen and Jackson. What's crazy about Lamar Jackson right now is that not a lot of people know this, but in the last couple years, he admitted in an interview that he had a growth spurt in his mid-20s. And when he came in the league, he was just under 6'2" in height, and he was about 210 pounds. Now he's almost 6'3", and he's pushing 230. So when he was 22 years old and he was winning his first MVP, he was about 20 pounds lighter. And he was faster than everybody on the field. He still is, but his shiftiness is more now lateral and making guys miss as opposed to straight line speed where he's outrunning everybody. He's getting run down now. No, there's no mistake about that. He's getting run down by faster guys, the younger guys that are coming into the league. People forget that he just turned 27 a couple weeks ago. And it's more now making guys miss, and now he's getting down when he's got the first down. He's not trying to extend the play and drop his shoulder anymore. He's not leaving the ball out there carelessly. He's been relatively secure in not turning the ball over lately.
Yeah, what the Chiefs are going to have to do is going to have the big guys get up and make some blocks on passes when he does try to throw from a crowded pocket situation.
Absolutely.
Lamar is not as good on the run throwing the ball as a Mahomes is. When he gets out, he goes, that's when he's a killer. It's when he has that chance to reset his feet that he's dangerous as a thrower, because he's so elusive. He can get outside, have time to then get it. He's not like Mahomes, who's can come up with like 47,000 different ways to throw the ball when he's on the run. and just take advantage of, guys that get open. But they're two very fun quarterbacks to watch, man. If I didn't have Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs, I'd like Lamar quarterback in my team. And he's an easy guy to like too, man. He's a kid that has worked his tail off. He's taken a lot of abuse in this league, especially from the sports talk media folks that don't watch the games close enough and don't see some of these things of the way the plays are designed to take advantage of his best skills. There's nothing wrong with that. But this kid has a lot of talent and has been dogged his whole career and has handled it with class every time.
He has. I will give you that. I do agree with you, and that's nice to hear somebody that's not a Ravens fan or a Lamar fan necessarily acknowledge.
Well, how about the Mahomes guy? I mean, it seems like the Chiefs live on Championship Sunday because this is what his sixth straight AFC Championship game appearance. Mahomes actually showed he could play on the road. I mean, Mahomes' only two non-Super Bowl losses came in overtime. One against Brady, one against Burrow. So, I mean, Burrow, I want to see the best quarterback against the best defense because, I mean, the Ravens led the NFL with 60 sacks. Nobody can run or throw on the Ravens. If you do, A, it's going to be picked off, or B, your quarterback's going to end up on his keystone.
Yeah, that's everybody makes a big deal about the defensive rankings, and honestly, there's not really many bad defenses that are left in the playoffs when you're down to the championship weekend. I will say this is a very, very physical defense, and watching these guys every week this year, they play nasty, they play tough, they beat teams into submission. And if there's one thing I know, just as an overall football fan, watching the game and watching other teams play, I watched Kansas City probably a handful of times that they've been on in my region. Mahomes doesn't like to get hit. No quarterback does, but Mahomes is very averse to getting hit. And when teams get physical with him, he does a little bit of the Brady pandering towards the referee for the occasional laundry. But there's impact players on this Ravens defense at every level of the team. Justin Madubuike, excellent run defensive lineman, led the league with the defensive tackles and sacks this year with 13. He provides inside pressure. Jadeveon Clowney's having he's having a career year in terms of sacks and overall production, but that's just along the defensive line. Not to forget about Michael Pierce, or tackle, or anybody like that, but Roquan Smith is one of the best linebackers in football. I believe he's the best, but that's his biased nature. He's up there with Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Matt Milano, those type of guys. And then you got Kyle Hamilton, who's probably the best Swiss Army knife in football. He's a positionless football player. He can play the slot. He can play deep end. He plays outside and inside linebacker. He plays cornerback. So there's not anything this guy can do outside of play nose tackle. So, yeah.
Yeah, my Chiefs on defense, they were playing a 20-man rotation this year. They are deep and they're fast. They got a couple of guys nicked up, but everybody does this time of the year. But I look at the Ravens and I look at a couple of teams. If you look at the whole stats line for the Ravens, you're just wowed. But I remember a couple of games this year where they gave up a lot of points, and to teams that you kind of like, why are the Browns scoring points on these guys? Why are the Rams scoring points on these guys? These teams should be shut down by the Ravens, and Andy Reid will see this and will figure out what those teams did well. And I think what they did well was they kept Baltimore guessing, where they ran a lot, on at times when you wouldn't think they were going to run, and they passed when you thought they were going to run. They mixed things up, and they kept Baltimore from really teeing off. You get behind the sticks on Baltimore, you are in trouble. Just like you get behind the sticks on KC, you're in trouble. That's going to be the big part of this game. It's going to be a lot of field position. They could have a wet field for Sunday as well. There could be some rain in Baltimore. I think the worst of the rain will be over in the morning, but it could linger and just enough to give you a little bit of a wet field. That's going to be interesting to see how that affects the game as well. But Dylan, this is going to be, break out all your cliches. This is going to be a barn burner. It's going to be a brawl. It's Saturday night or Sunday night brawl. I mean, you can bring out every single one of the cliches you want. We are about to be treated to two very good football teams that when they play their best game, it's tough to score on these guys. It's going to be those big plays that come out of nowhere. It's going to be that, hey, they get caught on a run blitz and Pacheco gets that edge and can get to that second level and take off. Those are going to be the kind of plays that KC is going to have to get against this Ravens defense, because if you're behind the sticks on them, you're dead meat. And we've seen that all year long. But they are vulnerable to the occasional big play. And, Buffalo wasn't giving up any big plays. They gave up 6 of them against the Chiefs, where there were 20-yard plus plays. The Chiefs actually played their best game in the last 2 games this year. They have been a weird team to watch this year, because you're scratching my head going, what are you doing this week? And then all of a sudden, hey, it's playoff time. We're not going to be worried about the latest commercial shoot or anything. We're going to get serious about playing football again. And, all I got to say is, hey, Taylor, 2 of these. I want 2 of these this weekend.
I really hope she doesn't come to Baltimore this weekend. She will be. The whole Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce thing, it's ad nauseum. And
Come on, she needs a subject for another CD, man. Come on, she's running out of ideas for songs. She's got to have like 3 or 4 love songs, and then they'll break up, and she'll have about 6 more hits. Come on, that's the way this all works.
No, I know what Matt's hoping for is that, Kansas City's famous for barbecue. Matt's hoping that the Ravens give Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce a whole bunch of crap this weekend.
It's going to be a crazy atmosphere, because Baltimore last weekend they rolled out Ray Lewis, Peter Boulware, Carmelo Anthony, and Cal Ripken were all at the game.
Who are you going to get this weekend?
I don't know. We have Shaq DJing our tailgate party before the game, so he's going to be at the game. But they paid him to come in and be a DJ for the Jimmy's Famous Seafood tailgate party, and so Shaq's going to be in town on Sunday.
Well, if you think back to the last time these teams played, week 2, 2021, the Ravens won 36-35. And what I remember about that game, the Ravens ran for 251 yards, controlled the clock for over 37 minutes.
That's before the Kansas City Chiefs, figured out that you might want to play some defense. Those are back in the days where we might get a stop every once in a while, but they were going to be shootout games every week.
Yeah, I don't want to be cliche and say that team isn't this team, but this is a completely different Baltimore Ravens team from 2021. They weren't a playoff team that year. The Chiefs win was probably our marquee win that season. Lamar ended up getting hurt about maybe about 6 weeks later. It's always complicated when you go back and compare the last time these two teams saw each other, because back then Tyreek Hill was still a Chief. You had Travis Kelce was still, late 20s, maybe early 30s at that point. Mahomes was just getting started on his path to being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Just in terms of continuity, he was already a Super Bowl champion at that point, I believe. But I don't put any precedence into the 2021 matchup. You're seeing a peak Lamar and a peak Patrick Mahomes, and you're seeing two defenses that are primed, and it's going to be whoever breaks first. And both of our teams couldn't hold water in terms of defensive, capabilities the last time we saw each other. Now you're getting two of the league's best defenses going against, arguably the top quarterback that's not on their team this coming Sunday. So it's cool that you mentioned that, Dylan, but I don't believe that this is a situation where we're going to see a shootout of that capacity. This is going to be a harder fought game.
You know what makes this game even better? The coaches. I mean, Andrew Reid's in his 11th championship game appearance, and John Harbaugh is going to have a gold jacket and cannon one of these days too. I mean, you've got two Hall of Fame coaches, but two different styles. I mean, we know Andy Reid's the play call. I mean, he does all kinds of crazy things. I mean, it might be left-handed passes. It might be Mahomes running around the pocket. It might be Travis Kelce laterally the ball. It might be some kind of trick play. And then John Harbaugh, a lot like his brother Jim, the Ravens play old school. They run the ball, play physical, and then stop you with great defense. A lot like what the Michigan Wolverines did this year. Who won the Natty? Oh, Michigan. And who may end up being the Georgia head coach in 20 minutes?
It's going to be a very interesting game this weekend, Dylan, because both of the teams, when they're at their best, they're going to put on a show this weekend. You're going to see, again, I'll throw another cliche in there. It is going to come down to two things. Whenever you've got two really good defenses and two really good quarterbacks, this comes down to a field position game. It's going to be special teams. Who's going to break a big special teams play to flip the field when you don't expect it? That's going to be the big key to me. It's, everybody always talks turnovers. Neither one of these teams really turns the ball over that much. Both defenses are really good at forcing the turnovers, but neither one of these offenses really puts the ball on the ground that often when you can keep the ball out of McCole Hardman's hands. But I think it's going to come down to field position, and this is a coach's game, man. This is going to be a fun game to watch. Who can outcoach who? For that one key play. This is going to be a fabulous game. People expect me as the big resident Chiefs nutcase on Twitter to be, oh yeah, Ravens suck. No way, man. These are two very, very good teams, and we are in for a treat on Sunday. The Chiefs were playing, with house money going into the playoffs. This was not the best Chiefs team we've seen recently. Best Chiefs defense we've seen, but the offense is kind of like, some weeks I'm good, some weeks I'm not. They've got, good youth, good strength in Pacheco. They got good speed in Rice. Kelsey's getting his legs back again. But boy, this is going to come down to some great coaching moves, catching guys when they try to put the blitz on, try to put some extra pressure on, and making a big play. That's going to be, who can get the big play to burn the other guys. That's the big thing here. The Chiefs have been pretty good when they've been at their best on defense of containing quarterbacks and not letting them get out of the pocket and burn them that way. That's the key for Lamar. They gave up too much yardage to Allen in that first half last week. Made the big corrections. He didn't hurt them in the second half, and that was the big difference, along with very physical cornerback play. And I think that's what we're going to see again. But uh, special teams, this is going to be. I was on a podcast before the Super Bowl last year, and I said it's going to be a big punt return. It's going to be some big play that you don't expect. Big special teams play that's going to flip this game, and that's what it was last year with Tony making that big punt return. And I look at the exact same thing.
At least you remembered to catch the ball in that circumstance.
Hey, Tony is that incredible athlete who's not a great football player, and put him back on punt returns was a great decision and a great move. And I that's where I miss the guy, because I don't miss him as a wide receiver. He kind of runs what I refer to as an indifferent route. They need a little more help on that wide receiver, and that's the only weakness for KC. They got some guys who are big and physical like MVS who can actually block on running plays and do a good job. He made a nice catch last week that showed maybe that he's got his hands back, because he's always been a sure-handed receiver until this year. But yeah, this is going to be a hell of a game. We're in for a treat. These are two really, really strong teams, and they both deserve to be here. They're better than Buffalo. They are, and this is the matchup that nobody wanted to see, because everybody's sick of my Chiefs. 6 straight championship games. They got good right to be sick of them. But hey, I've been a Chiefs fan through the dark years. So I'm enjoying this. And as long as Mahomes and Reed are together, I think we're going to be looking at the Chiefs to be the team. It's the old Ric Flair thing, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And right now, Reed and Mahomes are the man. And, Kelsey, hey, he decided to play football last week. That was good to see.
And then Matt, tell us about John Harbaugh, because I feel like nobody mentions him in the great coaches, because we all think of Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Sean Payton, Kyle Shanahan. Nobody mentioned how good Harbaugh is. I mean, his brother just won an national championship playing the same physical style of football in Michigan. Very well could become the Charger head coach in the next 5 minutes. And Harbaugh's teams, I mean, yeah, thinking as a defensive mind coach, but he's worked on offense, working on defense. Heck, he's a special teams coach. I mean, the Ravens won that Rams game on a punt return.
Yeah. Before I talk about John, I'm gonna say this about Jim. Vanity is what's bringing him back to the NFL. The dude just won the national championship at Michigan. Nick Saban retired. He could run college football the next 10 years unencumbered, especially with the NIL. And he is choosing to entertain NFL head coaching offers. And right now, half of the jobs have been filled. I don't necessarily know if I want to, coach the Los Angeles Chargers or the Atlanta Falcons. Stay in Michigan. Make your $125 million and just cement your legacy as the greatest, modern era college football coach in the world. But when it comes to John, I'll say this. A lot of us get tired of his shtick here in Baltimore. The rah-rah, play like a Raven. We love all that to a degree, but we have expected a lot out of him, because in his first 5 years he came here, Went to the AFC Championship game twice. We won a Super Bowl once. And then he dismantled the team and brought in his guys after Ray retired, Ed left. We lost a lot of our defense. We traded Anquan Bolden for a bag of footballs. So there was a lot that was going on where we missed the playoffs for a little while, or we were one and done. And Lamar Jackson saved his job, essentially. There's no other way to go around that. Lamar Jackson completely saved his.
Love technical. I love technical difficulty.
Yeah, here's what I'll say about John Harbaugh. I think he is a better. There's some coaches that are really game time, game decision guys, where you can look at them, and those are the guys that always get the kudos for being the geniuses. Back way in the day, it was Hank Stram. He'd tell you he was the genius because he made all the big decisions on game day. Harbaugh, in my opinion, is just that organization guy. He's really good at putting a group of coaches together that can help him make the decisions on game day. He doesn't need to be the guy, that's got his fingerprints over every cool move during the game. He just is he's that old school coaching mentality. He's like, and I'm going to go way past your times, Matt and Dylan. He's a Vince Lombardi type. He's an organization guy. He grows the whole team thing from the ground up and can put together just that winning philosophy style of thing. But if you look at it and say, okay, look at what is there a game time decision this guy made that really was the big move, and it's harder to find one. It's harder to point to those consistently with Harbaugh. He's just a great organization guy that puts together a great he gets his guys to work together to put a great game plan together. Then they go out and they kick butt. That's when the Ravens are at their best, is when they do get that great game plan together. As far as making in game or halftime changes and adjustments, I don't really think that's his strength. I'm not saying he's bad at it, but I don't think that's his strength. Whereas you look at the Chiefs, and the Chiefs always make that halftime adjustment to be better in the second half.
You're right. His strength hasn't always been in-game adjustments and in-game management necessarily. I will level with you on that. The biggest difference between this year and in previous years, he's listening to his assistant coaches, listening to his coordinators. Both of our coordinators are ready or not ready necessarily, but they're primed for a head coaching job. And I'll say this about Harbaugh. You are right in the sense that he is a organization guy. But to put it, I'm not going to get on this long soapbox about Harbaugh, but I will say this. And you may understand it from my perspective. He comes here in 2008 with no fanfare. He's a special teams coordinator for Philly. Comes here, young guy, and is in his mid 40s, I think. He inherits a veteran team with Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, Haloti Ngata, Marshall Yanda. So he had a lot of these guys that were already built into the legacy of what Baltimore was in the mid 2000s. Into the 2010s. We make the championship game a couple years. We get knocked out a couple times. We're a dropped touchdown pass away from beating the Patriots in 2011. We go back in 2012. We win the Super Bowl. Flacco goes through. Luck, Manning, and Brady en route to,
Yeah.
John Harbaugh's first ring. Then after that, 2013 is a wash. We have we have a lot of off-field situations. Then 2014, we hired Gary Kubiak as the offensive coordinator. That's the first offensive coordinator in Baltimore under Harbaugh's tenure that was a head coaching threat. The offense has a career year. A lot of position players have career years. Under Kubiak, he goes on to Denver, gets the job, takes Manning to the Super Bowl the following year. In that 2014 to 2018 stretch, mediocrity. It's almost like Andy Reid going through this stretch of 6 straight AFC championship games, 2 Super Bowl appearances, potentially 3, depending on what you feel about the outcome of Sunday. And then he trades away Travis Kelce for a second-round draft pick. You don't bring anybody to fill in any other necessary holes. You let Chris Jones walk. You lose key pieces of your defense, and then you don't see the AFC Championship game for another 11 years.
Yeah.
So as much as we love John Harbaugh, he's had a tumultuous last couple of years, and he's made a lot happen with nothing. To pardon my French, but he's made chicken salad out of chicken shit a lot of the time. So, we love him to a degree, but a lot of people are ready for him to move on. A lot of people, even with this current iteration of the Ravens, they want him to retire after this year so we don't lose Mike McDonald. And that's just absolute lunacy. But Harbaugh had his choir boys on this team for a while, and it took until about the trade of Marcus Peters and adding Calais Campbell and adding Roquan Smith to where this team became edgy again, and they found an identity. They were very much lacking identity in the 2010s under Harbaugh.
Yep.
And outside of that Super Bowl year, it got a little wearisome because let's just be honest. John Harbaugh is coaching a different football team right now if Lamar Jackson doesn't come in for a hurt Joe Flacco and sets the league on fire for a year and a half.
Well, what would have happened, Matt? What would have happened if anybody stepped up to the plate last year and gave those 2 first-round draft picks for Lamar? This team would have been toast, man. I know
you're right.
The league screwed up. There aren't enough good quarterbacks in the league.
The Atlanta Falcons should have taken Bijan Robinson and traded him to Baltimore for Lamar.
It speaks volumes, Dennis, when 4 out of the 5 teams that publicly said that they weren't going to pursue Lamar fired their coaches and general managers.
Yeah. It's incompetence because
it is incompetent.
But Lamar has always been that guy that has always been having to prove himself. And I'm like, what are you looking at? What are you watching out there? Because the last couple of years he's had Mark Andrews and he's had like, as far as wide receivers go, and they finally gave him somebody in Flowers. Bateman is okay as like a second or third guy on a team.
He's not the main guy.
He's not going to be an alpha wide receiver, and that was who they had. I mean, Lamar finally has a weapon that he can use with some speed. I mean, Andrews is just a bulldozer. He's going to make those plays for you, and nobody can tackle the guy. But Flowers has given this team an identity. But you're right, Matt. When they made a couple of those big moves, when they picked up Roquan, that was it. He made their defense better than just adding one guy. And in the NFL, we see it all the time. Look at what the Bears did, adding Sweat late in the season. at the trade deadline, all of a sudden the Bears defense got good down the stretch by adding one guy and getting one other guy back healthy. Sometimes you don't need four more guys. You just need that one real big playmaker. And Roquan Smith is that, on that Ravens defense. And he is going to be the guy that, if the Chiefs cannot move the ball, it's going to be Roquan he's blown up some plays to make the big play, in my opinion.
And it's funny because in the 2022 draft, the Ravens traded Marquise Brown. I'm like, what are the Ravens doing? And then Baltimore drafted Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum, and I'm like, center and safety, and I'm like, the Ravens know something.
Centers in football right now. Both of our centers are incredible. I'm a former offensive lineman in my playing days, so I respect that. Creed Humphrey, Tyler Linderbaum, they're going to be those 10-year, 15-year centers they could be this generation of
Yep.
Jason, honestly.
Yep.
But when it comes to Roquan, I can't say enough great things about the guy. The biggest thing I'll say is that when he got here, it took the load off of Patrick Queen because Patrick Queen was getting abused. And now he's in the position to where he's going to make a lot of money and he's going to have to go be the guy again somewhere else. I like Patrick Queen, but that's going to be rough. When Roquan got into this defense and started to understand the defense, he picked it up relatively quickly. 8 games in as a Raven, he gets paid $100 million. First linebacker to do so. Then you see a full off season come into fruition with him with this team. Justin Madubuike is the most dominant defensive tackle in the AFC. No offense to Chris Jones, I'm biased, but if you ask me, it's Madubuike. He puts so many guys in the right position. He's a coach out there on the field, and that's what you need. It's trickle down economics almost to where if your middle linebacker is solidly doing his job and putting guys in position, everybody else is going to play well. Brandon Stevens had a all-pro caliber year, didn't give up a touchdown. We did this defense played this way, and Marlon Humphrey missed more games than anybody else on the defense this year. So that's where, it's impressive what he's done for us.
Well, be honest, this feels like we've got the best quarterback against the best team. Do you think we could see this a time or two? Because we've seen Burrow and Mahomes on Championship Sunday. We've seen Allen and Mahomes on Championship Sunday. We've seen Tom Brady and Mahomes on Championship Sunday.
Yeah, this is going to be quite the matchup. You do have the two best quarterbacks. That's all right. You have the two best quarterbacks in the AFC right now going up against each other. They're not the best two in fantasy football. They're the best in real football right now, going up against each other with playmaking defenses that are built around speed and being able to make the hard tackles. Everybody on the Chiefs defense, everybody on the Ravens defense, it when they hit you. And that's from the linemen to the linebackers to the defensive backs. Everybody hits hard. And that takes its toll during a game on an offense as well. So you've got the two best teams going up against each other. And I got my Chiefs they've been there, they've done that, and nothing scares these guys. And they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder to prove that they weren't the third best team in the AFC this year. They just played like idiots, part of the year. You know, they gave up 3 really stupid losses this year because I think it is that hangover of being there. And it's tough to keep it going during the regular season. But man, you get to the playoffs, it's a whole different ball game. And that's why I think it's going to be a great game this weekend. Don't get me wrong, it's not going to be a cakewalk for either team, but I like my Chiefs' chances because they've been there before. And I think they're going to be able to figure out how to move the ball against Baltimore. Those quick passes, if you don't get to the quarterback, Baltimore can get beat by playmakers. There's so much of what Baltimore has been able to do in shutting people down has been about harassing the quarterback. There have been times where they just collapse that pocket so much the guy he's all he's trying to do is have enough time to write his last will and testament, let alone trying to find an open receiver. Mahomes won't have that problem because of the interior line strength of the Chiefs. Their center and 2 guards give him space. And the Chiefs actually kind of game plan it to give Mahomes an escape route. If you watch them play, every time they get pressure on the quarterback, he's got an escape route. He's not surrounded. That'll be the big key. But boy, this is going to be a great game. I like my guys' chances because they've been there before, and they're not going to let the pressure get to them. And they're probably going to figure out a way to exploit any little fraction of a weakness on Baltimore. If Baltimore had a better running back. Now, if Dalvin Cook all of a sudden is the Dalvin Cook of 3 years ago, and he's knows the offense enough, then we're going to be in trouble. But otherwise, I think we got a pretty good game going.
Quickly, guys, I want a one-word answer to this. X factor from both teams. Starting with you, Matt.
Likely.
Dennis?
It's going to be one of the cornerbacks, man. It's going to be probably. Gosh, it's hard to pick because Snead has closed everybody down this year. So I'm going to go with Snead. He's been tough to score against and to get the big play against, and I think he'll be harassing Flowers most of the game.
All right, so thanks for hopping on, gentlemen. I wish you guys well on championship weekend, and maybe one of you will be partying down the strip in 19 days.
Thanks for having me on as always, Dylan. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Dylan. Dennis, it was nice meeting you, man. I love talking ball. You definitely know your stuff, man. I love to talk about this, talk some football with you guys again.
Well, whoever wins this game